that corporations own this country. I mean, what?
The truth.
Yes.
Look, you guys.
Yeah, okay, but we talked about.
You guys work for big corporations. You are corporations, so I take that to be the truth.
Okay,
Yeah, but corporations don't.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
it's a little different. I mean, the corporations we work for are a little different than Monsanto. Okay, you know, we were talking last week about some of the stuff that is subsidized in America agriculturally, and it's all the stuff that goes into making the worst kinds of food. It's not beets and broccoli. It's
No,
only
there
sugar
should be
and
no
salt.
subsidy. There should be no
Okay.
subsidies for any food.
Okay, but you know, after the show, a lot of people said to me that's current. Why don't you talk about genetically modified foods? Okay, you're right. We should talk about genetically modified foods. And again, this is a conspiracy of both parties. Obama said in 2007 we would label genetically modified foods, which, by the way, Europe has this. China labels China, which puts
That
lead
bastion of freedom.
and puts lead in baby food, you know, or some shit
But
like
at
that.
least you know it's there.
Okay, but we can't have that in America. You know why? Because in America, corporations run the show. Even though 9 out of 10 Americans would like foods to at least be labeled, to at least we know they're Frankenfoods.
Why?
Okay, they can't. Why? Because it says it would
wait.
hurt sales.
No.
So shut up and eat your fucking mutant chili. That's why. Because
If it's useful to label food, so for instance, things like fair trade coffee, if you go to Kroger, which is, you know, if not the biggest, one of the very biggest supermarket chains in America, they use a system where you can track your produce. You can use a QR scan on your smartphone,
oh,
things
for
like
God's
that.
sake, who's going to do that? Can we just
but
put it on the label like everybody else in the world?
What I'm saying is that the market has, you know, when consumers want that information, it's provided to them. Why? I don't care about
it's
genetically
not
modified
provided. No, that's
organisms,
the point.
which have
We
never
don't-
been shown to hurt anybody.
But you have a public role here, which is to warn people. It's not a question just
What are you
consumers
warning
want
them of?
Of whatever it is involved in what's in the food. If it's genetically modified.
Yeah, I'd like to know that.
I'd like to know
modified.
Listen,
Wait a second.
I don't
You know what?
know
Wait
what
a
it is.
second.
I
But here are
just
the
wanna
facts.
know whether it is and what it is, and they should inform
In
me.
Europe, only 5% of the food is genetically modified. Here, it's 70%. And
What is the definition of genetically modified?
well, here's something that didn't used to exist. They didn't used to take a gene out of a bacterium and put it in corn so that the corn grows its own insecticide.
Right.
That's right.
Now we do
Which,
that.
by the way, is good because then we use
I know,
less
it's awesome.
insecticide.
It's also delicious.
No, wait. I'm
hold on.
just saying.
No. There's a
Okay,
great
but-
argument for it. But if I want to make a decision about whether or not to ingest that genetically modified organism, I don't want it to be kept secret from me. If if the argument against it from the industry,
Exactly.
if the argument against it from the industry is that I will hysterically, as a consumer, make a decision if I see that label not to buy that corn. Well, the solution to that is not then to make it a secret thing that I'm ingesting it, but rather to convince me that it's safe.
And
They
just
don't
to,
want
show, and just to
actually
show that we are not partisan, you know, the villain in this is Obama to me. Because he, first of all, he promised blatantly that he would look into this and do something, and he didn't. He also appointed, what is the guy's name? Michael Taylor. Used to be a VP at Monsanto, the seat of evil. To be the food czar, the FDA deputy commissioner of foods. And of course, Monsanto's latest Frankenfood got speedy approval because this guy is in charge of it. Because it's like putting Jerry Sandusky in charge of Chuck E. Cheese. Of course he's going to approve with speediness.
Should anything, if there is not a health risk, and there are not health risks
But there may
associated
be a health
wait. There may be. There are not known health risks that are associated with GMOs. Why shouldn't the labeling be voluntary? And then if you choose,
Voluntary?
Oh yeah, I know. Voluntary in America, you've got to be nuts.
Right, let's trust the corporations to put people's health above profit, because that's what they would do.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's
It's
what
like,
corporations normally do.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The last nail is being driven into the coffin of the American Republic, yet Congress remains in total denial as our liberties are rapidly fading before our eyes. The process is propelled by unwarranted fear and ignorance as to the true meaning of liberty. It is driven by economic myths, fallacies, and irrational good intentions. The rule of law is constantly rejected, and authoritarian answers are offered as panaceas for all our problems. Runaway welfareism is used to benefit the rich at the expense of the middle class. Who would have ever thought that the current generation and Congress would stand idly by and watch such a rapid disintegration of the American Republic? Characteristic of this epic event is the casual acceptance by the people and the political leaders of the unitary presidency, which is equivalent to granting dictatorial powers to the president. Our presidents can now, on their own, order assassinations, including American citizens, operate secret military tribunals, engage in torture, enforce indefinite imprisonments without due process, order searches and seizures without proper warrants, gutting the Fourth Amendment, ignore the 60-day rule for reporting to the Congress the nature of any military operation as required by the War Powers Resolution, continue the Patriot Act abuses without oversight, wage war at will, treat all Americans as suspected terrorists at airports with TSA groping and nude X-raying. And the Federal Reserve accommodates by counterfeiting the funds needed and not paid for by taxation and borrowing, permitting runaway spending, endless debt, and special interest bailouts. And all of this is not enough. The abuses and usurpations of the war power are soon to be codified in the National Defense Authorization Act, now rapidly moving its way through Congress. Instead of repealing the 2001 authorization for the use of military force, as we should, now that bin Laden is dead and gone, Congress is planning to massively increase the war power of the president. Though an opportunity presents itself to end the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, Congress, with bipartisan support, obsesses on how to expand the unconstitutional war power of the president he already holds. The current proposal would allow a president to pursue war anytime, any place, for any reason, without congressional approval. Many believe this would even permit military activity against American suspects here at home. The proposed authority does not reference the 9/11 attacks. It would be expanded to include the Taliban and associated forces, a dangerously vague and expansive definition of our potential enemies. There is no denial that the changes in Section 1034 totally eliminates the hard-fought-for restraint on presidential authority to go to war without congressional approval achieved at the Constitutional Convention. Congress's war authority has been severely undermined since World War II, beginning with the advent of the Korean War, which was fought solely under a UN resolution. Even today, we're waging war in Libya without even consulting with the Congress, similar to how we went to war in Bosnia in the 1990s under President Clinton. The three major reasons for our constitutional conventions were to guarantee free trade and travel among the states, make gold and silver legal tender, and abolish paper money, and strictly limit the executive branch's authority to pursue war without congressional approval. But today, Federal Reserve notes are legal tender, gold and silver are illegal. The Interstate Commerce Clause is used to regulate all commerce at the expense of the free trade among the states. And now, the final nail is placed in the coffin of congressional responsibility for the war power, delivering this power completely to the president, a sharp and huge blow to the concept of our republic. In my view, it appears that the fate of the American Republic is now sealed, unless these recent trends are quickly reversed. The saddest part of this tragedy is that all of these horrible changes are being done in the name of patriotism and protecting freedom. They are justified by good intentions while believing the sacrifice of liberty is required for our safety. Nothing could be further from the truth. More sadly is the conviction that our enemies are driven to attack us for our freedoms and prosperity, and not because of our deeply flawed foreign policy that has generated justifiable grievances and has inspired the radical violence against us. Without this understanding, our endless, unnamed, and undeclared wars will continue, and our wonderful experiment with liberty will end. And I yield back the balance of my
If you want to go kill and hurt people, go to Iraq. Why y'all doing this to people? Y'all walk around in riot gear like this is a war. I saw them beating people, people that had nothing to do with anything, just grabbing people out the crowd. There's no honor in that. My mom, my father, everybody has served in Iraq, Afghanistan war. I did 14 months in Iraq. My father was in Afghanistan. My mother did a year in Iraq. We fought for this country. I don't come home I'm in New York City. I am from New York City, and these cops are hurting people that I fought to protect. There's no reason for this. There's no honor in hurting unarmed civilians, and I won't let it happen. Have a good night.
I served with Kilo Company, 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines as an automatic machine gunner. There's a term, once a Marine, always a Marine, but there's also the term, eat the apple, F the Corps. I don't work for you no more.
What sort of training did you have as a Marine? I mean, were you given cultural awareness?
This Republican-Democrat thing, all the world is a stage. Obama is a puppet. He reads the script, he's a teleprompter reader, that's his official job, he doesn't make any decisions.
Strings?
The powers that be that have the majority of power in this world are those that control the financial system. The financial crisis engineered by these same criminals who are the ultimate fraudsters of the world. The Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, those are the real string pullers, that's real power. War is out of control, and those who are destroying this world by fraud and deception is what's out of control. 9/11 was the false flag operation used to justify the invasion of Afghanistan. It is the ultimate deception, and it's done for a full spectrum dominance agenda, which is part of controlling this world by deception. And unless we as people stand up to these treasonous traitors and all of those people carrying out this stuff and the colluders, including the mass media and the politicians, we are going to continue to get this kind of deception.
The individual is handicapped by coming face to face with a conspiracy so monstrous that he cannot believe it even exists. And that's the problem we have today. This conspiracy is so monstrous, so demonic, that we tell people about it and they say, you're crazy, this is America, it can't happen here. We have all the evidence needed to prove to anybody, if they'll just look at the evidence, that 9/11 was an inside job.
I wanted to fight in the war. I joined up, month out of training, I arrived in Baghdad, Iraq. We believed 9/11 was a lie. This is in 04. Every soldier soldier believed 9/11 was a lie. We thought the people would expose the lie, know the war's a lie, and bring us home.
I'm outraged at what is going on. Again, they're using this idea of patriotism and honor. That's bullshit. This war is not about honor. This war is about profiteering. This war is about money. We're nothing but pawns being used for their political agendas. We need to wake up, and these politicians need to stop playing with the citizens' emotions and trying to give them this emotional high and patriotism. Let's speak reality. We need to wake up America.
What you see with people is that they're desperate to hear what they want to hear. For people to say, oh no, these conspiracy theorists, they're all crazy, you know, they're all paranoid, it's not really going on, it's ridiculous, and this is done to protect you. This is done for you, you know, we're the government. This is why we're doing it. You know, watch the telly, there's a game on in a minute, and you'll be fine. And we're just going to build another concentration camp, okay? See you later.
Take you to the FEMA camps being built by Halliburton right now to house 50 million Americans. They're building enough concentration camps in America.
If we don't act now, we're going to lose all our rights. I served my country. I got an honorable discharge from the Army, and I swore an oath to protect the country from all enemies, foreign, domestic. Now, these people that are operating in our government right now are criminals. Whatever you hear on TV isn't what the reality is. You are losing your rights as we speak. You got H.R. 2749, which is a Food Safety Act, and this affects the entire country. They can stop all forms of transportation in and out of the state. They can destroy vehicles. They can declare martial law, and they can shut restaurants down. They can shut down supermarkets. And that's why they put all these hot button issues out there to distract people, so they argue amongst themselves, like race and abortion and terrorism and health care and God only knows what else. They got you all distracted, arguing amongst each other while they're all fucking robbing us. And people don't know. I talked to people today, they didn't even know what martial law was. They're like, what's that? And when I told them, they couldn't believe it. I mean, people have to wake up. And it's unfortunate, but we're at a point right now that if people don't wake up, they're going to lose everything that they fought for. That's where we fell off. We were out watching football or basketball or baseball or going on the beach or talking on the internet or texting each other, whatever the case may be.
The last nail is being driven into the coffin of the American Republic, yet Congress remains in total denial as our liberties are rapidly fading before our eyes. The process is propelled by unwarranted fear and ignorance as to the true meaning of liberty. It is driven by economic myths. Who would have ever thought that the current generation and Congress would stand idly by and watch such a rapid disintegration of the American Republic, which is equivalent to granting dictatorial powers to the president. Our presidents can now, on their own, order assassinations, including American citizens, enforce indefinite imprisonments without due process, treat all Americans as suspected terrorists. It appears that the fate of the American Republic is now sealed.
Every time our country stands in the path of danger, an instinct seems to summon her finest first. It's always the patriots who first hear the call. When loss of liberty is looming, as it is now, the siren sounds first. When ordinary hands can possess such an extraordinary instrument, that symbolizes the full measure of human dignity and liberty. That's why those 5 words issue an irresistible call to us all. So as we set out this year to defeat the divisive forces that would take freedom away, I want to say those fighting words for everyone within the sound of my voice to hear and to heed. From my cold, dead hands.
But we begin tonight with a tale of 2 speeches, both from the same man, both from President Obama. One speech that could have been billed as a ballad to the Constitution, a proclamation of American values, a repudiation of the lawless behavior of the last presidential administration, and another speech announcing a radical new claim of presidential power that is not afforded by the Constitution and that has never been attempted in American history, even by George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. Remarkably, President Obama today made both of those speeches simultaneously. Standing inside the National Archives in front of the actual original Constitution, President Obama delivered a blistering critique of the Bush administration, in which he called their actions and their legacy literally a mess.
Our government made a series of hasty decisions. Poorly planned, haphazard approach. Too often, we set those principles aside as luxuries that we could no longer afford. Our government made decisions based on fear rather than foresight. The decisions that were made over the last 8 years established an ad hoc legal approach for fighting terrorism that was neither effective nor sustainable.
An ad hoc legal approach for fighting terrorism that was neither effective nor sustainable. Ouch. Then, moments later, he announced his own ad hoc legal approach for fighting terrorism. President Obama today proposed something new, something called prolonged detention. Doesn't sound that bad, right? Prolonged detention. Did you ever see the movie Minority Report? It was based on a Philip K. Dick short story. Came out in 2002. It starred Tom Cruise, remember? He played a police officer in something called the Department of Pre-Crime. Pre-crime is where people are arrested and incarcerated to prevent crimes that they have not yet committed.
Mr. Marks, by mandate of the District of Columbia Pre-Crime Division, I'm placing you under arrest for the future murder of Sarah Marks and Donald Dubinos. Take place today, April 22nd, at 0800 hours, 4 minutes. No, I didn't do anything.
You didn't do anything, but you're gonna. Future murder. Creepy, right? Putting somebody in jail not for what they've done, but for what you're very sure they're going to do?
There may be a number of people who cannot be prosecuted for past crimes. In some cases because evidence may be tainted. but who nonetheless pose a threat to the security of the United States.
We're not prosecuting them for past crimes, but we need to keep them in prison because of our expectation of their future crimes.
Al-Qaeda terrorists and their affiliates are at war with the United States, and those that we capture, like other prisoners of war, must be prevented from attacking us again. Prevented. We will incarcerate people preventively. Preventive incarceration. Indefinite detention without trial. That's what this is. That's what President Obama proposed today, if you strip away the euphemisms. One civil liberties advocate told the New York Times today, quote, "We've known this was on the horizon for many years, but we were able to hold it off with George Bush. The idea that we might find ourselves fighting with the Obama administration over these powers is really stunning." And it is stunning, particularly to hear President Obama claim the power to keep people in prison indefinitely with no charges against them, no conviction, no sentence, just imprisonment. It's particularly stunning to hear him make that claim in the middle of a speech that was all about the rule of law. But we must do so with an abiding confidence in the rule of law. Our government was defending positions that undermine the rule of law to ensure that they are in line with the rule of law.
How can a president speak the kind of poetry that President Obama does about the rule of law and call for the power to indefinitely, preventively imprison people because they might commit crimes in the future? How can those two things coexist in the same man, even in the same speech? Well, that brings us to the self-consciously awkward, embarrassing part of this speech today. After condemning the Bush administration for what he called their ad hoc legal strategy for trying to make things seem legal that patently weren't, this is what President Obama proposed.
My administration has begun to reshape the standards that apply to ensure that they are in line with the rule of law. We must have clear, defensible, and lawful standards for those who fall into this category. We must have a thorough process of periodic review so that any prolonged detention is carefully evaluated and justified. Our goal is to construct a legitimate legal framework for the remaining Guantanamo detainees that cannot be transferred. Our goal is not to avoid a legitimate legal framework. In our constitutional system, prolonged detention should not be the decision of any one man. If and when we determine that the United States must hold individuals to keep them from carrying out an act of war, we will do so within a system that involves judicial and congressional oversight. And so going forward, my administration will work with Congress to develop an appropriate legal regime so that our efforts are consistent with our values and our Constitution.
You'll construct a legal regime to make indefinite detention legal. You will, what does he say? Develop an appropriate legal regime. So you can construct a whole new system outside the courts, even outside the military commissions, so that you can indefinitely imprison people without charges. And you'll build that system from scratch. What's that somebody said about ad hoc legal strategies? Just for context here, in the United Kingdom, where there isn't even a Bill of Rights, there's been a major debate about whether people can be held in preventive detention. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair wanted 3 months to be the outer limit for how long anyone could be held. There was a big political fight about it. Parliament ended up limiting that power to 28 days. 28 days is still the longest period of preventive detention that's allowed under law in any comparable democracy anywhere in the world. How long would President Obama's proposed preventive indefinite detention last? Well, he's not saying yet, but here's how he defines the threat that he says makes indefinite detention necessary.
Right now in distant training camps and in crowded cities, there are people plotting to take American lives. That will be the case a year from now, 5 years from now, and in all probability 10 years from now. 10 years from now. So you could get arrested today and locked up without a trial, without being convicted, without being sentenced for, say, 10 years until the threat of your future criminal behavior passes. Prolonged detention, he's calling it. This was a beautiful speech from President Obama today with patriotic, moving, even poetic language about the rule of law and the Constitution, and one of the most radical proposals for defying the Constitution that we have ever heard made to the American people.
It's a natural tendency to believe that the world as we know it will remain as we know it, and that any change that does come will be gradual. However, history has shown over and over that this is a false assumption. This tendency, often referred to as the normalcy bias, prevents people from seeing and understanding the immense forces of causality which build up as a society approaches a cataclysmic change. The U.S. economy is headed for a collapse. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate why this collapse is inevitable, and I'm going to show you evidence that the U.S. government is actively preparing for this event right now. The U.S. national debt is currently at about $16.7 trillion, and it's been growing by an average of $3.87 billion a day. This is an inconceivable amount of money. The human mind just isn't capable of registering what numbers of this size actually mean. So let's take a look at a visual representation. This is $100. This is $10,000 in $100 bills. This is $100 million. It's also about how much 3,500 Americans would make with a salary of $28,500 a year. And this is 16 trillion. Again, these are stacks of brand new $100 bills. And guess what? This number is dwarfed by the unfunded liabilities that are estimated to stand between 86 trillion and 123 trillion, depending on who you ask. To add to the mix, we have an estimated $1.2 quadrillion in debt-based derivatives still in the banking system. Now, I couldn't find a graphic representation of $1 quadrillion, but a quadrillion is 1,000 trillion. So it's 1,000 times this. Like I said, these are inconceivable figures here. This is not fixable. Those who try to convince you otherwise are not misinformed. They're lying to you. One way or another, we're headed for a breaking point. This is the inevitable result of having a debt-based currency. For more information on this topic, please watch my video entitled Why a Dollar and Euro Collapse is Guaranteed. The US government sees this coming and they are preparing. The way that they're preparing, though, should make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. You might remember not too long ago I did a report on the billions of rounds of hollow point bullets and buckshot that the Department of Homeland Security has on order. Perhaps you thought this was a crazy conspiracy theory. Well, if Forbes is willing to acknowledge it, is that mainstream enough for you? Last week, I put out a detailed report covering a leaked government document entitled Internment and Resettlement Operations, or FM 3-39.40, which clearly outlines the plans for military internment camps for U.S. citizens. It specifically mentions the use of psychological operations officers within the camps to isolate activists and to pacify the population. The link to the video and the document itself is in the description. And then there's this.
Well, we have our big vehicle out here. It's an armored vehicle. It's an MRAP vehicle. It's mine resistant, ambush protected. That's what it stands for. This is what we use to deliver our team to high-risk warrant services. This is the only entry in the vehicle here, so all the operators, we've modified our particular vehicle to have the skids on the sides so that we can have operators on the side and just get off the vehicle from the sides. It makes for a very fast deployment. That's what we're trying to do. If there's an issue while we're out serving a warrant service or something like that, we can shelter in place with this and then go into surround and call out operations inside of here. We can generally get about 10 or 11 operators in here. Very tight, but we can do it. So we get them in there. We have the same on this side. We have a skid on this side as well. We can put four or five operators on here with the shield, and they deploy off this side. The team commander, which is myself, I'll stand in the MRAP and provide overwatch for the team while they're making entry into the house. This glass right here is multiple layers of glass. It's about, I would say, about that thick. It's got multiple layers in there, and it will stop up to a 50 caliber round. The window will. So it provides very good protection for us. We have gun ports in here, so we can actually shoot from within the vehicle. You may think it's pretty loud, but actually it's not too bad. But we do have gun ports there and in the back, and there are two on the side as well. Our team is stationed in El Paso. That's where we're from. We have a team right now, about 17 certified members, and a couple green team guys that are trying to get on the team. And we cover the entire New Mexico state and West Texas, all the way out from El Paso to Midland. And that's our area of operations. Now, we are a national team, so we can be called to go anywhere in the United States and assist other teams with whatever they have pending.
It should be obvious that this isn't law enforcement. These are preparations for war. Combine all of this with the NDAA of 2012 and 2013, which give the military the right to kill or detain anyone anywhere in the world without a trial, and you've got the makings of a full-out military dictatorship. Powers that be have no intention of becoming the powers that were. Their system might be falling apart, but they aren't about to just let the people choose what comes next. Now, if you're a rational, intelligent person who's willing to look at reality, then this information is bound to be frightening. For some people, it'll be so overwhelming that they'll just push it out of their minds and do their best to avoid thinking about it. Others will understand that this is irresponsible and will want to do something. But what? Let's start by using the process of elimination and discard the options that clearly won't do any good. Option number 1, vote the bums out. That's not going to work, guys. The elections are rigged. The entire system is corrupt to the core. This should be obvious to you by now. You have zero chance of getting your country back through politics at this point. To pretend otherwise is just delusional. Option number 2, hold protests or fill out petitions. Come on, seriously? The criminals running the system don't care what you think. Your petitions mean nothing to them. Stop groveling at their feet. Option number 3, launch a violent revolution. Okay, as popular as this option may be with some people, the fact of the matter is the public is not psychologically or logistically prepared for this. If a small handful of civilians armed only with rifles and handguns try to take on the federal government right now, the results would be disastrous. Anyone with urban combat experience, especially veterans of Iraq or Afghanistan, can attest to this. So what does that leave us? I'm going to describe 3 steps that would change the game if the people could bring themselves together. This is not a command or recommendation, it's just my analysis of what would work. Step number 1, cut the federal government and the bankers off financially. Bleed them dry on every level, meaning stop every single payment going in their direction. If you aren't willing to go cold turkey in this regard, organizing a file for extension, day of action, for example, this April, might be a start. Make no mistake though, to really bring these crooks to their knees, you're going to have to play hardball. Step number 2, occupy and blockade the Congress. Do not let these criminals through the doors. Congress and the Senate are guilty of high treason. The most lenient penalty that they should face for the crimes that they have committed would be a life behind bars. Merely preventing them from going to work would be beyond merciful. But it would be a start. Step number 3, call for the military to break the chain of command and refuse to fight in these wars in Africa and the Middle East. Call for them to come home and protect the people from its real enemies. If soldiers want to fight for freedom, they need to disband the Congress, the executive, and the kangaroo courts that some like to call the judicial system, and bring the financial cartel, which is really running this show, to justice. Sound extreme? Yes, it's extreme. But that's what it would take. Short of this, America's headed for an overt East German-style lockdown when the economy unravels. This isn't something that's coming 20 or 30 years from now. The scale and the pace of the government's preparations should make that clear. Those who have young children and who don't want anything to do with this insanity would be advised to have a plan B, meaning you need to make the necessary preparations to leave the country on short notice. You should have a passport for every member of your family. You should have enough cash to get you out of the country. You need to research the geography, the politics, and the immigration policies of several countries. If the country you're looking at speaks a foreign language, then you need to start learning that language. This is really just the bare minimum. Listen, I don't want to look at this any more than you do. I don't want to see my country go down this road. And to be honest, I don't know what our chances are of changing the outcome. All I know is that we have to try. We've got to wake people up to what's coming. If we're going to win, it's only going to be possible if we reach critical mass. If you feel this message needs to get to the public, then please share this video by every means possible. Share it to Facebook, to Twitter, to your friends via email. If you want more content like this, please subscribe to this channel, Storm Clouds Gathering, here on YouTube. For bonus content and updates, follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/StormCloudsGathering. On Twitter at Collapse Updates. And of course our website, stormcloudsgathering.com. Also, we're doing our live broadcast Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, which is tonight, here on YouTube. So be sure to check in for that.
My name is Joshua Ehrenberg. I was in the United States Navy for over 11 years, and I am a 3-time decorated National Defense, which is the ribbon or award you get when you are on active duty during wartime. This is the current war that's going on. I do not believe that it has to do with defending America. I saw it's Memorial Day, and I saw a commercial that kind of upset me because it said our men and women who are defending our country, and we're not defending our country.
What are we doing, Mr. Ehrenberg, if we're not defending our country? What is the president doing?
Well, we're involved in a situation that I don't see any reason why we should be involved in currently. Now,
are we defending America, or are we invading another country?
We're not defending America. We're not in America. We're invading another country. And I think that anybody who looks at it, and it's one of the largest oil producing areas of the world, and it's an oil executive that we have in office, I think anybody who doesn't see that as a conflict of interest or something should throw up a flag. I mean, I don't see how they couldn't see that.
So you have buddies still over there that are risking their lives?
I have a lot of buddies that are over there, and they're risking their lives. And
do they feel they're defending America?
no, they do not.
Do they want to come home and defend America from American shores?
Right. They had to, when September 11th happened, they were, no problem. We'll defend, defend ourselves. This has gone, well beyond, and we're now in an entirely different country. We're now
being an aggressor.
Being an aggressor, and I'm not even sure why we're there.
So you oppose the war in Iraq?
I am opposed to the extent that it's gone to. I think that in '91, during the Persian, Gulf War, the first one, there was a lot more legitimate reason. I don't see the legitimate reason behind it currently.
Thank you.
Are you happy with the way that Obama has been running the country? You a fan?
No.
No?
No, I really think he misinterpreted his mandate. I think a friend of mine said to me the other day, I thought it was a great line, I no longer hope for audacity.
Really?
He's doubled down on a lot of things. Well, going back to that education thing, one of the things, if I were the Adjustment Bureau, this idea that we're testing kids and we're tying teachers' salaries to how the kids are performing on tests. It's a really, that kind of mechanized thinking has nothing to do with higher order thinking. We're training them, we're not teaching them.
Are you a fan of Barack Obama's?
I'm not a fan of what he's doing at the moment.
Why?
Because I just don't think he's governing. I think he's gotten bad. I don't think he's surrounded himself with the people he could have surrounded himself with. And he's doing just what we were talking about. He's having to just lay out a certain line of that and hope people will believe it so he can stay in the position.
I did say President Obama's policies must fail because they're creating a socialist America. Now, why do I step out and say that, knowing I'm just going to get a whole bunch of other stuff coming back at me? It's important that we speak out. If we see something amiss, that's our duty as citizens. I'm against his silence on Iran. I'm against Obama's lie that he was going to protect Israel, and now as president, he arrogantly tells them what they can do and what they can't do, as he forgot that our only hope to defend us against Iran's nuclear buildup is Israel. And I'm against his very cunning ability to push things, to rush things through without anybody having a chance to look at them. His stimulus packages fail. Slowly but surely, we can see that Obama's policies are failing. Obama is on his way to bankrupting America.
Look, he's been a horrible president. I always said the worst president was Jimmy Carter. Guess what? Jimmy Carter goes to second place. Barack Obama has been the worst president ever. The history of this country, Barack Obama is #1.
Insight into Russian actions, particularly in the last couple of weeks, does the proximity of the state give you?
They're our next door neighbors, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
You've cited Alaska's proximity to Russia as part of your foreign policy experience. What did you mean by that?
that Alaska has a very narrow maritime border between a foreign country, Russia, and on our other side, the land boundary that we have with Canada. It's funny that a comment like that was kind of made to, I don't know, you know, reporters.
Mocked?
Yeah, mocked, I guess that's the word, yeah.
Well, explain to me why that enhances your foreign policy credentials.
Well, it certainly does, because our next door neighbors are foreign countries. They're in the state that I am the executive of. And
have you ever been
Russia.
Involved with any negotiations, for example, with the Russians?
We have trade missions back and forth. We do. It's very important when you consider even national security issues with Russia, as Putin rears his head and comes into the airspace of the United States of America. Where do they go? It's Alaska. It's just right over the border. It is from Alaska that we send those out to make sure that an eye is being kept on this very powerful nation, Russia, because they are right there. They are right next to.
Know what else she's not done to our knowledge? Properly pronounce the word nuclear.
Nuclear weapons. Maybe they're going to have nuclear weapons.
Is it too much to ask that the next chief executive of this country and his assistant know how to pronounce the word nuclear, both of them, after 8 years? Don't we all deserve that much?
Build a nuclear weapon. Build a nuclear weapon.
Both Bush and Palin say nuclear instead of nuclear. Why can't an educated American, not to mention the president, pronounce a simple word? Nuclear is a word that he needs to mention often and is very relevant, so why can't he at least learn to pronounce it? My first language is in English, but I've never had any trouble pronouncing the word. Bush and some other new conservatives are only acting stupid, just as John Kerry did in 2004, because he wasn't supposed to be elected.
Rarely is the question asked, is our children learning? And find out that the literacy level of our children are appalling. Why don't you volunteer? Why don't you help mentor a child how to read? And you're working hard to put food on your family.
I think we ought to raise the age at which juveniles can have a gun.
Families is where our nation finds hope, where wings take dream.
But we will stay the course, as we'll stay the course.
This country will stay the course.
We will stay the course. We will stay the course. We're going to stay the course, and we must stay the course.
We'll stay the course.
As we will stay the course.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask you about, because James Baker says that he's looking for something between cutting on and stay the course.
Well, listen, we've never been stay the course, George.
Poor people aren't necessarily killers. Just because you happen to be not rich doesn't mean you're willing to kill. It's your money. You paid for it.
In my state of the union, or my speech to the nation, whatever you want to call it.
You see, free nations are peaceful nations. Free nations don't attack each other. Free nations don't develop weapons of mass destruction. For a century and a half now, America and Japan have formed one of the great and enduring alliances of modern times. Africa is a nation that suffers from incredible disease. I think war is a dangerous place. Terriers and barriers everywhere tariffs and barriers everywhere. Karen is with us, a West Texas girl, just like
Senator
me.
Reed and I are both from the West. I'm from West Texas, he's from Nevada. And we tend to speak the same language, pretty plain spoken people, which I should bode well.
I think if you know what you believe, it makes it a lot easier to answer questions. I can't answer your.
George W. Bush is in fact very clever. Do you think that an idiot can become the president of the most powerful country in the world? In fact, he did not act stupid back in the 1990s when he wanted Christian conservatives to support him.
To answer your question, what Texas ought to do is determine what the mission is in the state perspective. I think that the mission in education ought to be excellence in literature, math, science, and social science. If school districts want to enrich beyond that, more power to them. But at the state perspective, we ought to hone in on 4 subject matters and see if we can do it right. We ought to determine the cost per pupil necessary to achieve excellence in the classroom, and we ought to fund it. The funding priority of the state of Texas ought to be the school children of our state, and it has not been under the past 4 years. The state share of education has decreased to 44%. That is why we have property taxes on the rise in nearly every single school district in the state of Texas. Define the mission, determine the cost per pupil necessary to achieve the goal, and elect a governor who's willing to say that the #1 funding priority of our state will be the school children of Texas. I have my juvenile justice plan in a minute and a half. It's a hard task. I will try to do so. The core of crime in Texas is the juvenile justice problem.
Did Bush know that invading Iraq would make him and his administration unpopular before doing so? Or is he just a stupid person who didn't know what he was doing?
Yeah, I'm not so sure the role of the United States is to go around the world and say this is the way it's got to be. If we're an arrogant nation, they'll resent us. I think one way for us to end up being viewed as the ugly American is for us to go around the world saying, we do it this way, so should you.
Compare what he said before becoming president with what he said after.
We will tear down the apparatus of terror, and we will help you to build a new Iraq. I don't think our troops ought to be used for what's called nation building.
He knew exactly what he was doing. He had to make conservatism unpopular because the Illuminati agenda is to make America liberal.
You went to Yale and Harvard. I did. And they're all pinhead liberals over there, right? And they're all pinhead liberals over there, right?
Yes, they are, and that includes Bush. In fact, back in Yale, Bush was a member of the homosexual Skull and Bones Secret Society. The liberal John Kerry was also a member.
And they're all pinhead liberals over there, right? I haven't spent a lot of time analyzing why professors feel the way they feel. You just want to get out of the class. I was the same way.
Notice how they both say that they disliked education and that even though they were among the liberals when they were younger, they were actually very different from them. The media often directly or indirectly associate conservatism and religion with stupidity and ignorance, giving the impression that liberals are clever. Obama's supporters actually think they are very smart because they compare themselves with Bush, McCain and Palin and think that since they are not as ignorant as the president and other neoconservatives appear to be, then they themselves must be very clever.
Rarely is the question asked, is our children learning? Is our children learning?
Notice you almost said it right. You almost said, are our children learning? But as soon as he said are, he remembered that he should have messed up his line. So then he said, is our children learning? That's why you hear him saying, is our children learning?
Is our children learning?
Neoconservatives are secret liberals, and many, if not all of them, are homosexual Satanists pretending to be Christian family men. They are trying to destroy conservatism and Christianity from within, just as the fake Al-Qaeda is trying to do with Islam. Back in the 18th and 19th centuries, the existence of the Illuminati was a well-known fact, and it wasn't considered to be, a conspiracy theory. Even George Washington spoke about them, saying, "It was not my intention to doubt that the doctrines of the Illuminati and principles of Jacobinism had not spread in the United States. On the contrary, no one is more truly satisfied of this fact than I am." He went on to say that the democratic societies or their founder had the Illuminati agenda. Remember, back then America was not a democracy but was a republic. So according to George Washington, the Illuminati first emerged in America as Democrats. But of course today they have infiltrated and taken over the Republican Party through Bush, McCain, Rumsfeld, Cheney and others like them.
And the neoconservatives actually aren't conservatives at all. They came from the left wing of the Democratic Party, and they came over and they co-opted control of the Republican Party. But they sincerely believe in entitlement expansion. So Republicans did exactly that. They expanded the entitlement system. At the same time, they have this belief that we have to protect oil and spread our goodness around the world and be in the Middle East. It's our moral obligation. It's part of the Will Sutton beliefs, making the world safe for democracy. So they believe it deeply, just as we believe deeply in our true conservatism and our Constitution. But what they believe in contradicts it, and you're absolutely right. It has nothing to do with being conservative. It's really radicalism in a bad sense of the word. It's a radical approach to government, big government home and big government abroad, and they don't even care about bankrupting the country. And I believe that's what is happening.
It's the liberalism of Woodrow Wilson, as it used to be called decades and decades ago, and they flipped.
Imagine you're a happy family living in Central Texas in a suburb of Austin, Round Rock. And one night you decide to smoke some marijuana after your 2-year-old daughter's gone to bed while you watch a movie. Something over 100 million Americans are estimated to do every single week. A good secret police neighbor smells the marijuana, calls the police, and they come with the CPS and take your 2-year-old happy daughter who'd never been in the hospital and never been sick and never been beaten up. You go for weekly visits with your daughter, and she's dirty, she's confused, she has black eyes, bruises, mold is growing on her body and her clothing. You go to the state and say, she's being abused, help her, and they laugh at you. And a month later, you get the call, she's on life support, her head has been caved in. 2 days later, they take her off life support, and she dies. Another victim of this tyrannical government that we have that is incentivizing the states to seize as many children as they can. Over 1 million of them a year. The Justice Department's own numbers show the horrific facts. The most dangerous place a child can be is in state custody. Little Alexandria Hill, or Alex as she was known, will never get to grow up and be part of the spelling bee at school or the swim team or softball. She'll never get to go to college and meet the man of her dreams and have her own children and grandchildren. She's dead. Another casualty of this sick society we have that has the largest prison population in the world. Every authoritarian state throughout history has been obsessed with attacking the family and seizing children from their parents. Nazi Germany, Soviet Russia, Maoist China. But they never did it on the scale that we see here in the United States. And every day I see cases in Texas alone where people's children are taken for the most petty of reasons and end up dead, raped, tortured, killed, their heads caved in. The children disappear routinely and end up overseas in snuff films and pornography. Our children are one of the favored commodities of the criminals that run our government. And the people that are in control of Williamson County, Texas, are famous for their abuse of the innocent and famous for their abuse of children that they've kidnapped from their parents. And I want to say something to the child predators in the police department in Williamson County and other areas in the United States. When we take America back, and we will, you will be tried for your crimes against humanity. You want to now charge one of the foster parents for supposedly caving this little girl's head in? You are just as guilty, knowing how hellish those facilities and those homes are where they warehouse kids for money. You know statistically there are more pedophiles and more abusers who literally torture those children within inches of their life, and that the state covers it up because it's part of a sick racket. And you need to know that it's all on your head, just like all the other cases in Williamson County where they've known people were innocent and known who killed people's wives and children and done nothing to prosecute the real criminals and gone after innocent people. You will be charged for that crime as well. And those charges are now forthcoming. And you will be brought to justice in Williamson County and everywhere else for the crimes you've committed. Your tyranny can go on for a long time, but sooner or later, God is going to cut you down. You shouldn't fear Alex Jones, and you shouldn't even fear the American people. You should fear God, because God is real, and God is the law. You will be held in judgment for what you've done. All of you, the judges, the police, you are all accomplices in aiding and abetting the torturous death of children in Williamson County and across the United States and places like North Korea, where they take families' children as well for collectivization into the state. For those of you who have only been passively involved in the industry that is the abuse of children at the hands of the state in this country, there's still time for you to admit the facts and go public and speak out against this evil and turn the tide. I will forgive you. The parents of the abused and dead children will forgive you. And most importantly, the creator of the universe will forgive you. And yes, even little Alexandria Hill, who is beyond your wicked grasp, will forgive you as well. Join humanity and let us stop the modern slave trade in children that is taking place in this country. And finally, all of you out there watching, there are children being kidnapped for the pettiest of reasons in your town and in your city. Become an advocate for those families. Volunteer to expose the incredible miscarriage of justice where a Stasi spy neighbor smells marijuana and a month and a half later a little girl's head is bashed in. Did that family deserve to have their daughter killed in state custody because they smoked pot? Is that really land of the free, home of the brave? Or is it really a system designed to capture non-violent, non-criminal people in a parasitic system? I'm Alex Jones signing off for Infowars.com. The ball is in your court. The rest is up to you. The innocent children are crying out, not just here in the U.S., but worldwide, under state and corporate abuse. Those children are counting on you to research the facts we've laid out here today and to come to their aid. If you won't, who will?
Now you can watch The Alex Jones Show live as it happens at Infowars.com/show.
You'll find links to all of our content there and a free 15-day trial for Prison Planet TV.
More than 60 movies and documentaries all in one place at Infowars.com/show.
Can you say why America is the greatest country in the world?
Diversity and opportunity.
Lewis? Freedom and freedom. So let's keep it that way.
Well, why is America
not the greatest country in the world, Professor? That's my answer.
You're saying...
Yes.
Let's talk about...
Fine. Sharon, the NEA is a loser. Yeah, it accounts for a penny out of our paycheck, but he gets to hit you with it anytime he wants. It doesn't cost money. It costs votes. It costs airtime and column inches. You know why people don't like liberals? Because they lose. If liberals are so fucking smart, how come they lose so goddamn always? Hey. And with a straight face, you're going to tell students that America is so star-spangled awesome that we're the only ones in the world who have freedom? Canada has freedom. Japan has freedom. The UK, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, Australia, Belgium has freedom. So 207 sovereign states in the world, like 180 of them have freedom.
All right.
And yeah, you, sorority girl, just in case you accidentally wander into a voting booth one day, there's some things you should know. And one of them is, there is absolutely no evidence to support the statement that we're the greatest country in the world. We're 7th in literacy, 27th in math, 22nd in science, 49th in life expectancy, 178th in infant mortality, 3rd in median household income, number 4 in labor force, and number 4 in exports. We lead the world in only 3 categories: number of incarcerated citizens per capita, number of adults who believe angels are real, and defense spending, where we spend more than the next 26 countries combined, 25 of whom are allies. Now, none of this is the fault of a 20-year-old college student, but you nonetheless are, without a doubt, a member of the worst generation ever. So when you ask what makes us the greatest country in the world, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Yosemite? Sure used to be. We stood up for what was right. We fought for moral reasons. We passed laws, struck down laws for moral reasons. We waged wars on poverty, not poor people. We sacrificed. We cared about our neighbors. We put our money where our mouths were, and we never beat our chest. We built great big things, made ungodly technological advances, explored the universe, cured diseases, and we cultivated the world's greatest artists and the world's greatest economy. We reached for the stars, acted like men. We aspired to intelligence. We didn't belittle it. It didn't make us feel inferior. We didn't identify ourselves by who we voted for in the last election, and we didn't scare so easy. We were able to be all these things and do all these things because we were informed by great men, men who were revered. First step in solving any problem is recognizing there is one. America is not the greatest country in the world anymore.
enough?
I'm sorry, but I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, and what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness.